Hello and welcome to Empire Rugby League. This is the Western Front where we talk everything local WA Rugby League. With me as always is Morgz. Morgz, how are you?
Yeah, good. How are you, mate?
Not too bad, not too bad. And Beer Triks all the way down the end there. How are you, mate?
Boys, good to be back.
Absolutely. Well, I didn't think I was back this week, but apparently Sweeney's got another week on the sidelines, so here we are again.
Subbed out.
Subbed out again, yeah. 18th man, last minute call up. Here we go. All right, senior round 3. I suppose let's get into the review. Women's tag. Ellenbrook 12 went down to Kwinana 24. You boys will be pretty happy about that one.
Yeah, good win.
South Perth drew with Joondalup 10-all. Fremantle downed Mandurah 72-0. And North Beach got over Willagee 30-16. And Alkimos had the bye. So a few close games in that one. Moving on to third grade. South Perth down Mandurah 16-10. Rockingham down Fremantle 20-16. North Beach got over Willagee in a tight one 18-16. Ellenbrook, wow, they put the cleaners through their northern rivals. Alkimos 34-0. And Kwinana, 14 over Kalamunda 6. You boys 2 from 2 in the lower grades.
Yeah, no, it was good. You know, I got my cameo and onwards and upwards.
Yeah, big influence from Sweeney in that 14-6 win from what I've heard as well.
Oh, there we go. Talking the boys up. Anyway, we'll run through the Val Murphy. Unfortunately, boys, this is where your hot streak came to an end. Kalamunda downed Kwinana 24-18. South Perth 38 over Joondalup 26. That's a high scoring affair. And Fremantle over Rockingham 38-16. And North Beach with an emphatic victory over Willagee 44-4. But the game that we're going to highlight is Alkimos 12 over Ellenbrook 0. Morgz, you got a bit more on this one?
Yeah, I mean, sort of with half an eye on it, watching it, it looked like the score should have been a lot higher. Like, I was sort of watching it looked like it was a lot backwards and forwards. So I was surprised seeing that score at 12-0. But I think this game, you know, there's a lot of emotion in it for both clubs with what's gone before. And I don't think that's our place to speak about. But I think both clubs bought it. There was an Anzac ceremony beforehand and minute silence. And I think it was just a really emotive game. And it brought the best out in both clubs. And yeah, Alkimos prevailed, but it definitely looked like Ellenbrook could have easily got it at many points.
Yeah, fair enough. Beer Triks, anything on that one?
No, I didn't see
Missed
it.
that one? Nah, fair enough, mate, fair enough.
Yeah, I wasn't travelling to Ellen.
Yeah, it's a big trick. Moving on to the women's premiership. Ellenbrook 36 over Joondalup 0. Catch any of this one, gents?
No, I just saw the score at the end.
Just
This wasn't the live game, so...
No, the live stream Pathways game was Willagee v Kalamunda. Bit of a blowout in this one. Willagee 78 over Kalamunda 0. Boys catch this one?
Yeah, I watched. I was pumped to watch the women's premiership, back to 5 teams. Willagee, a lot of noise around. Kalamunda, hadn't heard much, and yeah, it was a bit of a... Yeah, what was it? One-sided affair, that's for sure. I think it was 16-0 after 6 minutes or something like that. And yeah, the poor Kalamunda girls. I think they might have had 1 or 2 on the bench, if that. So. But we've all been in them games, and you know, when you come into premiership like that, you got to take your licks and onwards and upwards, and things are only going to get better. So to all those girls, you got to stick together and just keep plugging away.
Yeah, I think that's it. Really, he just kept running through the middles and went to the outsides and kept finding space. They look good, but I mean, I think the real test is going to be the games coming up when they sort of take on those dominant clubs that we've talked about in the past. And I think for Kalamunda, turned up, put in, kept fighting, and doing that now for the rest of the season, and getting into training and then building a squad and just keeping on the up and up.
Yep.
Staying together is what it's about.
So purely, you reckon just a numbers thing, or maybe quality, or anything, coaching, or we're not here to chip anybody, but like, how can we explain a 78-0 on a live stream Pathways game?
I mean, I think we highlighted one of the Willagee players, Brownie Young, was at one of our local legends last week, and skills like that, I think, just stood out. Like, that was class above there, and a couple other Willoughby players that have got a lot of state and other level rep experience, and I think it just shone through.
Yeah, Willoughby just more athletic. Tracy Daniels through the middle, she was great. They just had more class on the edges. And like I said, Kalamunda very low on subs, so by the end of the game, it was they'd had enough.
That's completely fair. I think everyone around the table here, we've all been on the end of some spankings in our days. So it is no fun when it gets to that 40 plus score and you're going, how long left? It's not much fun.
Full credit to them, they stuck it out to the end, and they were still chasing down the tries at the end. So.
Do you reckon maybe this is that combination that we've thrown it up again in previous episodes, boys? The travel, the Friday nights. Like I'd assume that a lot of these women from all 5 clubs, even though Fremantle had the bye, but from all 5 clubs, like there'd be mothers, aunties, sisters, like on a Friday night travelling, especially for the Kalamunda, Fremantle, Willoughby girls, travelling all the way up to Joondalup for this game on a Friday night. Like, would that have a potential effect on these score lines, or?
I mean, I imagine it's definitely a possibility, and even if it didn't, the fact that it's a possibility, I think, is the issue. Like, it only takes one crash on the freeway and the team don't turn up, like we've sort of highlighted before, and I think that's the downside of the Friday night footy when you're playing in a city like Perth that is spread out over like 100 plus Ks.
Yeah, we're never going to know until they, I suppose, give them the respect they deserve and playing before first grade.
That's fair. That's a fair point. Well, moving on to first grade, men's premiership. South Perth 76 over Joondalup 0. Now, from memory, boys, this was a South Perth home game, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, well, how did we see this one? Was anyone there at this ground?
No, I wasn't there, but I mean, I think the score says it all. One team was on, the other team wasn't. I think that's all you can draw from that one. But like we were saying, like referencing back to the women's, I think it's important. Joondalup keeps on fighting and keeps on holding their head up, keeps on turning up for each other, and South Perth are back in a big way and are going to be putting the scares through the other teams in first grade, I think.
Yeah, I did call it, boys. I did say it'll be a big win to South Perth, so go me.
Green ticks all along there.
But, Joondalup show they can be competitive, but just on the day, things don't go your way, away game, it's very easy for things to get out of hand if the teams with as much class as South Perth get the upper hand.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So another game was Fremantle 44 over Rockingham 22. So a nice couple of double even numbers there. That makes the OCD happy. And this was at Rocco. So obviously the FIFO for Freo, or the injuries that you predicted last week, Beer Triks, didn't come to fruition.
Oh mate, I seen the lineup, and they got a few injuries and people away or whatever, but the feeling at number 6, one Delane Edwards, when he's in the side, as a
not a terrible replacement to have come in, is it?
It's not bad. And from all reports, Rockingham were very poor. Maybe still recovering from the 3 weeks off. Who knows? But like I said, man, they're not going to hit their straps till round 7 or 8. They're a whole new team, so yeah, I think they'll get better.
I mean, I think we talked about it in our season preview how long before Mr. Edwards was there for Freo, and it got to week 3. And I think, that the Sonny Kerr, Delane Edwards entry into that team, I mean, that's some class WA talent and stuff there, and I think that's obviously what did it for Freo.
So the late call-ups, we'll call them the Alfie Langer of WA football, got the call-up, and off we go, Fremantle for the win. The last game in Premiership last week, boys, was North Beach 34 over Willoughby 28, and this was at Weber.
Yes, first home game for the Bears.
Yep. How'd we see it?
But I watched it on the live stream, and Willoughby started great, and then, they're a frustrating team, just so ill-disciplined, like just silly passes on tackle 2 and 3, early kicks that weren't on, just dumb penalties, and then they finally started getting tackled 4 and 5 in the last 15-20 minutes, and they come back and made a grandstand finish. So, but they'd all, the Beach, I think it was like 34-10 10 or something by that point. So Beach are probably throwing the queue in the rack. But if Willagee play like they did the last 15 minutes, man, they're going to be a strong footy team this year. But they just got to cut the crap out of their game.
Sounds like they were chasing highlight reels and Harlem Globetrotter stuff instead of knuckling down and doing the hard yards.
Yeah, and I think that, like, I didn't see this game, but I've seen Willagee play the first 2 weeks, and I think it's rocks and diamonds from them, and I think, as Beer Triks said, maybe rocks to start with and diamonds at the end, and I think the important thing for them is the more diamonds than rocks, and they'll be a threat and they'll put other teams on notice.
Well, that's just it. This is their reintroduction year into Premiership, isn't it? So maybe that a few of those bad habits from the lower grades just need to be stamped out a little bit at training.
Yeah, you can get away with those in the lower grades, but when you got the class of Jeremy Wallace and Bailey Miller and all that in the opposition, they're going to tear you apart. And the second rower on the left side, I can't remember his name, but geez, he made it a tough day out for the 5'8" for Willagee. He was peppering him all day, and he got the upper hand a few times. So. Well played. It's
what a good back rower does. Pick on that smaller half. Anyway, boys, we couldn't do this last week because the information wasn't available by the time of our recording. But we can do it this week. The junior draw breakdown for the competition grades. Well, actually, we can only do the male or the boys draw because the females and the girls haven't been released yet for some unknown reason. But anyway, we'll move on. So, under 13s boys, by the information I've got in front of me, gents, only 7 out of the 12 Perth clubs have an under 13s boys. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's concerning, especially when you look at under 13s matching up with the Rise program, which we've sort of spoken about before. That is the pathway age group. So, for a little over 50% of the clubs to have a team, we have to, I guess, ask the question, why aren't the kids stepping up from the non-comp to the comp teams? What's the reasoning? Why are we losing players? Because, you look at the, non-comp, most clubs have under 12, some have 2 under 12 teams. So why is those numbers not translating to that first comp age group, I think, is concerning.
Yeah, you wouldn't sort of expect a drop-off until, maybe like 15s. Boys start hitting that age and they start getting other interests, sort of. But at 13s, yeah, because we've got strong junior age groups all the way up to under 12s, and then goes competition. So, yeah, like you said, Morgz, a lot of clubs have got 2 teams all through them age groups coming up, and are we losing that many kids to the game that we can't field 10 or 12 teams in the 13s?
Well, then you have a look at the 14s boys competitions, and out of the 12 Perth clubs, there's 10 clubs with an under 14s boys. So is it nearly a case of skipping the single years and doing a 13s, 15s, 17, like doing the odds or evens instead of having every single one?
I mean, from memory, and I might have my years slightly wrong here, but I came over here 2015, and I think under 13s came in, I think it was 2016, 2017. Now, obviously back then, comp was younger, and that's another debate for another day. But that came in, so obviously because there was a demand then, but maybe, back to 14s, back to 16s, 18s, something like that if there isn't the numbers, and then allowing clubs, if they've got the numbers, to have 2 teams, so you're not turning players away, is an option.
Yeah, I mean, you could probably do it from 14s and then jump to 16s, but I'd be leaving the 12s, 13s, 14s, because kids are maturing at different ages.
Yeah, nothing.
Different boys go through different stages at different times, and I think if you go from, say, a 12s to a 14s, there's a big disadvantage.
Well, potential to lose even more players, really.
Yeah, I mean,
there's too much difference that can happen.
That's a fair point. I look at myself as someone that's sort of birthday end of the year, I would have been rather small playing under 14s as a 12-year-old.
You'd be small playing under 14s now, Morgz.
Not would be. Definitely am.
Yeah, I've got a lot of boys in my team that are...
I was going to say, but again, that's probably that Pacifica influence to the game that we have. And obviously we've got a large Pacifica culture and standing in WA. And obviously love the influx of it in the game because they bring skills and that just haven't been seen before. But with the age bracket thing, it probably does make it hard to then have a 12-year-old go up against a 14-year-old Pacifica who's probably 2 to 3 times his size, and
definitely.
Skill level probably a little bit higher. So, look, if you combine it all in one, you have 17 teams within that age group. So, overall, probably not a terrible place to be at.
Not terrible, no, not terrible.
And then we move on to the older age groups, which, as you mentioned before, Beer Triks, this is where the boys definitely fall off because other things catch their eye, we'll say. So this year, 2025, only 7 out of the 12 clubs have an under-15s boys team. What do you reckon there?
I mean, again, it's about that pathway, isn't it? And we're talking under-15s, again, rise, and under-15s is the state team. So you're picking a state team under-15s from, you know, probably your best under-15s and maybe your absolute top talent in your under-14s. So that I think the number of players there has to be concerning when we're talking pathways and especially with, you know, future sort of pathway expansion. We have to be asking, how do we keep this age group engaged in community sport? How do we keep them playing the game? And what do we do to promote the game in those ages?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think you can put down the participation in the 15s and the 17s boys down to rugby union has just got a better pathway at the moment in Western Australia.
Well, if we give every club that's currently in that 15s boys competition 25 players, say that's what's regoed, and 25's a bit of a stretch for some, I'd say. That's under 200 under 15 boys playing in WA.
Yeah.
So if that's the 15s, and then as we move on to the 17s, there's only 6 clubs. So what's going on here? Like, if there's under 200 boys playing under 15s, how many of those boys are going to end up playing third grade Val Murphy Premiership? Like, if we're looking at a serious drop off, do we even have senior teams in the future?
Well, that's right. You know, it's hard enough. It's hard enough getting people that aren't completely in love with the game to play senior footy as it is. You know, let alone having that lower numbers in the junior age groups coming through.
Yeah, and with the 6 clubs that have under 17s boys, Morgz, I know you identified something interesting here.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only 3 of those teams are the teams that that have first grade talent. So that means there's 3 first grade clubs running around that don't have an under 17s. When we talk pathways and players coming through, you want your youth, you want your young kids coming through because that's your first grade talent, and that concerns me. But I think the other side of that coin is that means there's 3 clubs out there that don't have first grade talent but have a direct pathway from their under 17s into their seniors. So, you know, glass half full approach. There's 3 clubs that effectively will have at least half to maybe 3/4, depending on the age range of the boys themselves, moving into senior footy next year. That should mean those 3 clubs go a long way to having first grade teams, in my opinion.
Yes.
So, taking the optimistic approach, if it's growing the first grade game by boys progressing through to seniors, it's something.
No, that's I'm good on that.
Happy with that one?
Yeah.
All right, well then I'll throw a curly one at you boys. So obviously we've just identified that 15s to 17s, well 15 to 18 really is that tough age to retain the boys in the game. So how do we retain them?
I mean, I think pathways that mean something. I know myself, young fellas are only playing union this year, having played league and union, predominantly league, because they have contracts with the organisation and the sport we won't mention. But that's what that keeps them in the gap. That keeps them. They know they can look at career paths and they see there's an avenue for me running around at the field I have now to professional level sport.
Well, that's just it, Morgz. So, Beer Triks, you touched on it lightly before. Got any more info on that? Like, there's obviously another code that is doing some things better in this space than what we currently are.
100%. Yeah, I've got 9 boys in my team at Kwinana under 14s who play both. They play union and they play league. And looking into the union side of things, it just looks like a much more professional outfit. Like, you know, they've got a full website. It's got drop downs. You can go see game times. You can see results. You can see the stats. There's a running commentary of when things happen through the game, when substitutions are made. They're all over it in rugby union, and they're absolutely pulling our pants down.
Well, that website alone sounds light years ahead of what we're currently working with. So, yeah, that seems slightly concerning, considering union as a whole is probably on the decline in the country. Yet somehow over here, it seems to be kicking our ass.
Well, you look at us. We turn up to the game on Sunday. Oh, no, my league. We're gonna have to use the old paper sheets.
Yeah. Well,
man, well, I was using paper sheets when I was in bloody under 13s.
Yeah.
What's going on here? Like, we've moved on. We've moved on as a society. We moved on as a game, and I'm pretty sure we're the only state in the country that isn't taking advantage of my league.
Yeah.
You know?
Well,
there's no up-to-date scores. Still now, I can't find any scores or any results for the under 14s games, under 15s games, any of them. None at all.
I couldn't find results for the junior competition grades this week to try and promote the scores or anything.
There's nothing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's unfortunate. But back to our clubs and our teams in junior competitions. Unfortunately, gents, there is a bit of a hole in the junior comp, and out of the 12 Perth clubs, there's a club that has no competition grade junior teams, and to be honest, for the club as a whole, they only have 4 teams, I think, from memory. I think they have a women's tag, a third grade, under 6s and under 8s.
Yeah.
Now, something's amiss there from looking outside in. How do we see this?
I mean, I think to see any club struggling that significantly with numbers has to be concerned, especially because, you know, we're not talking about a club that's in their first year and somehow, you know, drawing a whole lot of senior players. We're talking about a club that's been around for, you know, an extended period of time now. I think it's probably 10 years plus. So, you know, we want to support all these clubs, and as clubs and as a community, we want to see each other growing. But I think we have to ask the questions when we see clubs struggling. What's the barrier to those clubs growing, especially when we see other clubs that have been around for a lot less period of time, having almost every age group across seniors and juniors. There has to be questions asked, and we have to be asking, as a community, how can we help these clubs grow?
Well, that's right. It's, you know, from the outside looking in, this is a club screaming out for help.
Mm.
Where's the help coming from? You know,
well, that's just it. Should the help be coming from the governing body? Should it be coming from the clubs around them? How do we fix this? Because obviously it's as hard. A game, we're only as strong as our weakest club.
Yeah, well, it's hard. It's hard enough for clubs as it is because it's volunteer run, right? So it's got to come down to the governing body. There's got to be more help from them, and I think one of the biggest issues with this club is their location, their home base. It's so far away from what their team name is called.
Yeah.
And then it's so far away from everything else. It's hard to attract anyone. And really, if you look at Western Australia, where their base is the retirement capital of Western Australia.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, there's not many families settling up there. It's more the golden oldies seeing out the lives on the water.
That's right. Great nomads floating through, so that's
and we talk about it as well, and we talk about it again. I hate bringing it up again, but that other code has a team down there that looks like they're doing things that are growing that club. So
and they're killing it.
Exactly.
They're killing it, and they're closer to the city of that area.
Exactly. So it's demographics, it's location, it's all sorts of things that hurt not only that club but other clubs that struggle because they're not where the demographics are. Like we look at other clubs that have moved location recently and have seen a massive growth because they've moved to where their people are.
Yeah.
Well, that's just it. I mean, what's stopping the governing body from allowing this club to form a conglomerate of sorts with the union club that's in the area? And we all know that facility that the union operate out of in Meadow Springs is absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And could quite comfortably house both codes, considering one plays a Saturday, one plays a Sunday for juniors and this sort of stuff. Why can't we bring that together and capitalise on everything?
I mean, it makes sense, doesn't it? You know, if you've got the facility there, like, should be we should all be aiming as clubs to be using the best facilities in our local area. And if that's the best facilities, then that's where you want to be playing.
And if it comes at a cost, what's the cost matter if you're growing the game in Western Australia?
Well, if it cost you $1,000 a season to be at that particular ground instead of where you are now, but you're going to probably gain...
You go from 6 teams to 12 teams through the club.
It's going to... if the cost is right, I don't think the cost is a concern.
Just in registrations alone. That's not all the extra money that comes in from extra people at the band club through merchandise, through canning, through bar, all that sort of stuff. That's without all that accounted in. So
100%. So like we said, as a game, we're only as strong as our weakest club. So let's just hope that this club can get some help that it needs, and hopefully onwards and upwards.
Well, that's it, because ultimately what we want to see is 12 clubs with under 6s to first grade, men's, women's, and every grade, every team, you're just there, you're playing your opposition, everyone's together. That has to be the goal. That has to
100%. Yeah. Now, continue with the junior draw, guys. We touched on it earlier. There's still as of, 7 p.m. on Thursday the 8th of May, we still cannot find any competition female draws to promote or talk about or even know who's in the competition. So, boys' thoughts on that? Because did they not have round 1 last week as well?
Well, that's it. That's it. They played, and as far as we know, it's an under 14s girls tackle, GLT, so girls league tag, and under 17s girls tackle. However, grapevine tells us under 17s girls that comp might have folded after a week. Speculation at the moment, we don't have that confirmation, but that is what our sources are telling us. So, again, we talk about growing the women's game, and we're going into round 2 and there's no draws, there's no nothing. I think it's roughly 7 teams we think in girls league tag and 5 in the under 14s. So probably half the clubs roughly.
5 for a junior girls tackle it's not great. 5 out of 12 isn't great, but I'm happy with 5.
Yeah.
As long as it doesn't go backwards.
Yeah.
5's a solid starting point for the younger side of the age group as well. So
5's all right. You play each other 3 times and have a competitive season.
Especially if you've got the clubs, so those 5 teams are spread around the metro area, because it means there is somewhere relatively close for all the girls to play.
Yeah. But it's just so frustrating that there's no information out there about the competitions, because female participation is so important to our game. We've said it so many times. We've spoke about the decline in the women's premiership previously. Yes, it's back to 5 teams this year, but if we don't start getting it right for these younger age groups, we're going to lose them. Why do they stick around if they're not being shown the respect that they deserve to have this stuff out? We're 2 weeks into the competition and it's still not out. It should be out weeks and weeks before the competition starts.
That's it. You look at it, if you're a parent and you've got a kid in, say, the under 8s, under 10s, under 14s girls, your youngest 2 kids are playing at Kwinana, but you've got no idea if your oldest girl that's playing in the comps Kwinana or Alkimos or Kalamunda. It's mind blowing, and that's what's going to turn families away as well, because they've got no information, they don't know anything. And how do you organise your life? How do you support your kids? How do you support that kid's team? That's
an incredibly good point there, Morgz. At this age group, it's not really the girls that are doing the voting with their feet type thing. It's more mum and dad. And if mum and dad can see that there's no organisation around the competition, well, mum and dad aren't going to pay their money to be a part of that competition.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that goes across every age group, even up to seniors. If you got old mate rocking down and the club doesn't know whether they're Arthur or Martha, old mate's not coming back.
So these poor girls with no draw out, no idea of sort of what's going on for them through the season, other than a 6s to 12 draw, roughly, you're going to be here somewhere. They didn't find out, so they found out for this week that they're playing at this time, at this venue, at 2 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon.
Too bad if mum and dad have to be somewhere else, or there's, dad's at work and mum's got to drive 3 different kids to 2 different places.
Yeah, that's right. Sometimes, given these tough economic times that we're in, some people have to work Sundays, and they arrange their work life around so they can help each parent out with their kids' sports. And sorry, but Thursday afternoon at 2 o'clock doesn't give your employee enough time to be able to set these things up.
Absolutely.
It needs to be better.
And when we're talking, yes, we're a metro comp and distances aren't as far as, regional country elsewhere, but, the furthest games to the furthest north games, 130, 140 odd Ks. If you happen to be one of those ones, that's 2 hours. That's a massive
Well, put it this way, say for spitball an example, say Mandurah had it under 14s girls, they find out Thursday afternoon at training that they're playing in Alkimos on Saturday. Do you really think that there's enough legitimate time there for mum and dad to organise and for those families to organise to get to Alkimos?
No, of course not.
Yeah, well, too bad if another kid's playing somewhere else, then you've got to organise grandparents, aunties, uncles, friends, carpools with other people in the team.
Yeah.
It's just, there needs to be a bit.
But it's coaches as well, because coaches are coaching multiple teams, or
sports trainers.
The sports trainers. Well, that's it. Trainers doing multiple grades and league safe and all of that.
Now look, it wasn't just yes, the girls are still left behind a little bit with information, but the juniors last week, the junior boys draw even didn't drop until Thursday last week or Friday?
It was this week, was it? Or was it last week?
No, they released the draw, the draw for juniors.
That's not a competition
draw for juniors
draw, right?
was released last week, but the 13s, 15s, and 17s draw, there's no draw. It just tells you that you're going to be playing away from your club X amount of times through the year. So there's no detailed draw of where you're playing each week or anything like that.
See again.
So it's still you still got to read between the lines essentially to see what's going on. And if this is the standard, they're not going to know each week until 2 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon.
Which is ridiculous for a professional governing body to then try and engage numbers. Well, the clubs have to engage numbers, but how are the clubs meant to engage numbers when the hierarchy above them don't have the organisation to release these draws at least 2 weeks before the competition starts so that people can organise lives? Yeah, it just seems a little bit frustrating, and I'm sure it's frustrating at all clubs at the moment around this.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if this is worth bringing up, but there was a coaching course last night for junior kids for NRLWA, and the question was asked, why is my league not a thing this year? And the response that was given to the person that I spoke to is, it's the club's fault. The club hasn't provided us with enough information to have my league up and running. Which for me, that's a cop-out. That's a cop-out. You're the governing body, right? You should give yourself enough time that you can be on the back of the clubs week after week after week saying, we need this info, we need this info, we need this info. Right? If you're asking for all this stuff at April and the comp starts in May, that's not enough time.
No, 100%. And to be honest, be tough about it.
Yeah.
If the club's not going to provide the information, sorry, you're not playing.
Yeah, you're forfeit.
You're out.
Yeah, that's right.
Or either that forfeit until you are up to standard.
Yeah. Stand on something. The only way you raise the standard of this competition is by having higher standards and keeping people to that.
Yes. I think you're on the money there, Beer Triks. But not only that, there's another issue around the game as well, which we have to be a little bit careful here, boys, because first of all, we have to say we are not picking on the individuals that fall into this category. We respect the absolute out of these individuals, because without them we don't have a game.
Yeah.
But there is clearly a refereeing crisis, not just in WA, but across the country, across all grassroots footy. But obviously we're only going to focus on WA. So the numbers of available referees are a huge concern throughout every club, every game. But how do we improve it? How do we recruit more referees?
I mean, I think there's got to be more incentive, like whether that's the financial payment refs get, and I can't comment in terms of what the current refs get paid for different grades. That's not my field of expertise. But how do you bring people in? Like, refereeing has to be one of the hardest jobs in the game. I couldn't do it. I can't see a damn thing. I would be useless. So how do we get people in? How do we, whether it's a young kid that's, you know, still playing but maybe knows that playing footy is something they'll do for a bit of fun but not more, but sees a career as a route for, how do you get people that love the game but don't want to have the contact and the physical nature of the game but want to be involved? How do we do all these things to get people coming in? How do we make it accessible? How do we make it something people want to do? Because end of the day, without a ref, there ain't no game. There ain't no comp. There's no sport.
Yeah, I'll just... for our under-14s game on the weekend, the poor referee that was there, only a young fella. Our game in the under-14s that he was refereeing was his 5th or 6th game of the day. And this he's not completely above... He's not completely all over all the senior rules. And he was bugging. So, like, you know, our conversation before the game was, we just got to be thankful that we do have a referee here and that we can play a game. So, whatever decisions are made, just go with it. You know, just be thankful that we've got a referee. But, and I've got to give a shout out to Kwinana. They're trying their hardest, and it's very hard to convince teenage boys to do anything for other people other than themselves.
100%.
And I was the same when I was a teenager, and so. Usually, referees will get paid at the end of the season for how many games they do. So, Kwinana, to try and get referees for their games, for their home games, have said that they will pay out of their pocket and then they'll get the reimbursement from the NRLWA at the end of the day.
Oh, so they're
going to pay people at the end of the day.
Immediate reward type thing.
So they get an immediate reward.
Yeah, which
So
obviously...
it was fair play to them, and it's still, and even that is still not completely convincing kids to do the job. So.
All right, well... You mentioned there, Beer Triks, that there was a young fella obviously done multiple back-to-back games. But what about all these kids that you guys have spruiked about that are doing these RISE programs, that are doing their referees course in them? Why are we... Now, I know you can't force anybody to do anything, but why are we not having an incentive program around that? So what's, off the top of my head here, what's RISE cost? About $300 for the program?
It's 160.
160?
Something
All right,
like that.
$160 for the RISE program, and you're doing your referees course as part of it. If you went and told mum and dad that if their kid that they just forked out $160 for referees 10 games in the junior season,
yep,
and that basically reimburses their money, and if they ref any more, they make money, do you not think that mum and dad would then be encouraging or pushing their young child to referee those games so that they're not out of pocket?
It would certainly help, and especially because the parents are the ones that have got to drive the kids to the games.
Well, that's just it.
So if they've got to get there, if they've got to get the kids to the games earlier, so they can referee games earlier, then yeah, that's a good incentive for the parents. But in terms of how do you incentivise the kids, they're not worried about money really, not at that age. So I think they need to rejig the RISE program, because at the moment it's just a tick and flick. It's just a tick and flick for them to say, look, we're doing something to keep people in the game down the track.
Yeah.
But what are they doing to sort of get kids to actually participate as a referee in the game? You know, does that have to be, okay, you've done this in under 13s, right? So if you want to make the 15 side, yes, you still have to be in school because it's a school carnival, and you have to referee X amount of games by the time you try out for the 15 squad.
See, I don't see an issue.
Yeah,
with
no, that would be my idea as well. And and you obviously allow, okay, someone's injured. You make sure there's those allowances and the flexibility where needed. But yeah, having that sort of part of the thing, whether it's reffing or whether it's even the league safe and the other stuff we've talked about, having all that stuff in there, like that you've got to be doing something back for your local club, the club that is supporting you, the club that you're playing for, the club that's bought your jerseys, the club that's doing all that.
Well, that's just it, Morgz. You're never too young to learn that you can give back to the game that has given you the opportunity to do these things. So, I mean, there's an idea there. If it gets picked up and run with, who knows? Now, the other thing that, when you talk referees, naturally the conversation goes towards referee abuse and criticism. How do we see the general WA public's behaviour in that area?
Me personally, I've been involved in juniors completely for about a year and a half now, and I haven't seen any of that abuse or criticism. I've found everyone to be fair and respectful through the junior game.
That's awesome to hear. Absolutely awesome to hear.
So I can't really speak about that, but it's
Well,
it does come with a reputation as a referee across the board. So yes, that would be a deterrent,
And
especially when if you don't even look at that, if you look at refereeing as a whole, right? What does everyone complain about when they watch NRL?
The referees.
Yeah. So if you're going to give these people at the top who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars refereeing, it's their full-time job, if they're getting abused every week, why would a kid want to do it?
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hear stories and you see, stuff that goes viral about stuff that happens in the game and in other sports, all other sports elsewhere, and I think in comparison to that, I probably haven't heard a lot, but I think, something I always aim to do and do the best I can, but I think something we need to be encouraging as a sport. We go and shake the opposition's hand and circle up at the end of the game, and that's, it's nice and lovely and it's all flowers and roses and all that stuff. But let's go and let's set a challenge. Let everyone out there, senior, junior, whatever, under sixes, first grade, go and shake the refs and touch his hands. Show that appreciation, because we play footy because we love it. No matter how good we are or we aren't, we want to be out there with our teammates fighting for that club. But without the 20, 30, how many refs there are in WA, we ain't got a code, we ain't got a sport. So go shake the hand, show the appreciation.
We're not the only ones that love the game.
Yes, that's right.
The referees love the game as well.
They referee because they love the game.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So, look, how about last one on refs, because, we haven't hammered them, but, there's some issues. What's the advantage of being a referee? Obviously there's a monetary incentive. It's not, I believe, anything that's going to affect your tax return.
No.
But at the end of the day, maybe should we pay them better, or should they receive some more off-the-book perks? I don't know. So whenever the NRL brings a game to WA, for one of those games, we usually get 2 or 3 a year. For one of them, does the governing body reserve a corporate box for all the referees in the state, and they get a little day out junket and a reward?
Put them in the corporate box every time there's an NRL event in town. The referees are so important to our game, and we're so thin on referees that take every opportunity you can to treat them as good as you can.
And using those opportunities as well to get the NRL refs that are coming over to come out and talk to them, talk to the refs. Yep. Not just from a skill development point of view, but from a community of refs point of view, from a growing the game point of view. You talk about captains' runs and all that stuff and things like that, going to schools. Get the refs out there doing the same thing. Get the refs out there talking to kids at schools and being like, I'm an NRL ref. Yeah. I get to be in the middle of Suncorp Stadium in Magic Round or Origin or Grand Final. Tell them how good it is to be a ref. Get them out there saying to these kids, you can go and play and you can be a rugby league player playing the highest level, but you can also being wearing a striped jersey or whatever shirt they've got on.
Basically have the best seat in the house.
Yeah, exactly.
Get them out there. Get it from their point of view, like you said, If you're a referee, they talk to kids, you go out there and they ask the question, how do you deal with the abuse or whatever? If a referee turns around and goes, who gives a stuff if I get abused? I get to go out and bloody referee a state of origin decided best game in the world. Criticise me all you want, mate. Yeah. You're paying to come to the game. I'm getting paid to stand in the middle and front row seat.
Exactly.
That's it. Yeah.
The more positive stories you can get out, and then you can influence the kids positively that way. And even other referees, people that are just fans of the game that want to get involved in the game, but they don't want to get hit every week.
Yeah, well, that's just it. Referees, there's probably not. They don't lack the passion. If anything, they have more passion than most of the players. Yeah. So, let's look after them. Let's actually show them that they are valued, and let's just keep on going. So, to any club out there, if you have any kids that think they want to be a referee, or any dads, mums, uncles, aunties, anyone at all in your community, I guarantee you, whether there's a course on or not, if you email the governing body, I'm sure they will bend over backwards to try and get them accredited.
That's it. If they've got the demand, there'll be more courses. There'll be more people to get qualified. Easy as.
And to anyone that wants to give a ref a hard time, yeah, I know they make bad calls every now and then, but they're human. You know, people make bad decisions on a footy field. So if you're going to abuse a referee, pull your head in.
Mate,
you've got to be better than that.
If the players aren't knocking on or throwing forward passes or kicking out in the full, what's the ref? The ref ain't got nothing to do. The players make mistakes and the refs make the calls. So until the players are perfect, until you're perfect as a player, mate, why can you expect the ref to be?
Nah, well said, boys. And with that, we shall move on to round 4 of the seniors. Morgz, you want to take us through the Women's League tag fixtures?
Yep. So we've got South Perth versus North Beach at George Burnett Park. We have Alkimos versus Kwinana at Hartfield Park. We have Fremantle versus Joondalup at Treeby Community Sports Centre. And Willagee versus Mandurah at Weber Reserve.
Awesome.
And Ellenbrook with the bye.
Oh, yes, Ellenbrook have the bye.
It's the bye, the one you always beat.
Yeah, well, some teams do.
Wow.
I've been involved in some teams where the bye gets the better of them too.
I've been there, that's for sure.
Anyway, in 3rd grade, we have South Perth versus North Beach at George Burnett, Kalamunda v Ellenbrook at Hartfield Park, Kwinana v Alkimos also at Hartfield Park, and Mandurah v Fremantle at Weber, and Willagee v Rockingham at Weber. And I believe, Beer Triks, you have the Val Murphy fixtures.
Yeah, we got South Perth versus North Beach at George Burnett, Kalamunda versus Ellenbrook at Hartfield Park, Kwinana versus Alkimos at Hartfield Park, so a double header there for Val Murphy. Fremantle versus Joondalup at Treeby Community Sports Centre, and Willagee versus Rockingham at the Bear Cave Weber Reserve.
Fantastic. Now, quickly, boys, I'll just get a quick tip off you for these Val Murphy games. South Perth Beach.
North Beach.
Morgz is going Beach. Beer Triks.
South Perth.
South Perth, one apiece there. Kalamunda v Ellenbrook. Morgz.
Kalamunda.
Tricks.
Kalamunda.
Oh, Kalamunda double there. Kwinana v Alkimos.
Kwinana Titans easily.
Kwinana to bounce back.
The boys are loyal. Fremantle v Joondalup.
Freo.
Yeah, I can't tip Joondalup after last week, so you got to go Freo.
Fair enough. Freo at home too, so that's always a tough challenge. Willagee v Rockingham at Weber.
Oh, jeez. This one, I think this is the hardest one. Rockingham.
I'm going to go a draw.
A draw. Is there golden point in Val Murphy? No, not until finals or something, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. So a draw and a Rockingham tip. That's interesting. You've thrown me there, boys. Anyway, moving on. Women's Premiership. Morgz, I think you have this.
Yep, so we've got Ellenbrook versus Kalamunda at Charlotte's Vineyard up in Ellenbrook, and Joondalup versus Freo also up there with Willagee on the bye.
All right, boys. So a quick little preview on this one. I know we've only seen one game of the ladies play, and we haven't seen Freo at all, but quick little preview on Ellenbrook v Calla and a tip.
I mean, I think, look, we've already spoken about last week's results, and I think Ellenbrook are the obvious option. I think they will, reflecting on last week, dominate, but I just hope Kalamunda brings the fight and brings the passion for the game that I'm sure all their ladies have, and just fights. So
Ellenbrook strong, Calla to restamp their intentions, and the tip is Ellenbrook. Tricks?
Yeah, I got to go Ellenbrook, given what happened with Kalamunda last week and the big win that Ellenbrook had. This could be a good week for if Ellenbrook do have any younger girls to get a bit of experience in the top competition. It would be great to see them have a trot out. Kalamunda, it would be good to see if they could get a few more troops and maybe some matching kit this week. That would be fantastic.
Well, again, another big trek for Calla. Like, they went Joondalup last week, and now they're going all the way to Ellenbrook.
That's a close one for them. That's 15 minutes up the road. with the new freeway, that's up the road.
Okay. I'm not up to date on the freeway changes then. And then the second game is Joondalup v Freo. How do we see this one, gents?
I mean, I think we haven't seen Freo yet, so it's hard to know what they're going to look like, but I think Joondalup will be filthy, having lost their cross-north rivals last week, and I think I'll go Joondalup for the tip, simply because we haven't seen Freo yet, and we know Joondalup's been a strong team in the women's comp for a long time, and they will want to bounce back, I am sure.
I'm going to go Fremantle, from what I've seen of the squad that they have. through social media posts that I've seen. I think they look like a fairly strong side this year, so Fremantle.
Fantastic. All right, and obviously Willagee have the bye. So, men's premiership. Beer Triks, let's take us through these fixtures.
We got South Perth versus North Beach. Grand final preview, maybe, at George Burnett Park. Fremantle Roosters versus Joondalup Giants at Treaty Community Sports Centre. And rounding out the weekend, Willagee Bears versus the Rockingham Sharks at Weber Reserve.
Rightio. So South Perth versus George Burnett. That's where they're playing, and that's South Perth's home ground. They are against North Beach. How do we see this one playing out?
I think South Perth at home, and I think it is really the home ground advantage that I will tip South Perth. I think it's going to be a cracker. I agree it's probably a grand final preview based on what we've seen. South Perth by 2.
I think South Perth, I would say by 12. It'll be a good battle through the middle. 2 pretty good forward packs. North Beach last week looked fantastic for 60 minutes and just didn't know how to close out a game. And I think South Perth got a bit more class, so I think they'll get them at the back end.
Fair enough. So another home team is Fremantle up against the travelling Joondalup. What do we reckon here?
Yeah, I think, Joondalup looks like they're in for a tough year. Freo, especially if they're keeping the names we've already mentioned and maybe welcoming back a few more troops, I think Freo will be far too strong in this game.
Fremantle have players out and they still put 44 points on, So
Yeah.
How can you tip against them?
Fair enough. And then, as you said, the round out the weekend out at the Bear Cave there at Willagee v Rockingham. What's going to happen on the lovely pillow top surface of Weber Reserve?
I think this series of games and everyone they play is a battle for 4th spot. I think whoever dominates this series of 3 games we'll see between Willagee and Rocco, whoever gets the 2 wins probably makes that 4th spot. I'm going to go bold and call it. And I think the flair of Willagee and the rocks and diamonds we've talked about, I reckon we'll see a few more diamonds this week as that team gels, and Willagee by 18.
Whoa!
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more on the first part. That Willagee and Rockingham just don't have the combinations yet that the big 3 sides have in South Perth, Beach and Fremantle. Like I said, Rockingham's still building. I see it's a really positive signs from Willagee at the end. If they can cut the shit out of their game, I think they could win convincingly as well.
Fair enough. Well, there you have it. All our tips and previews of the next round of senior WA footy is right there. Now, gents, our favourite topic, local legends to round out the segment. Morgz, who we got?
So this week was inspired by a post from one of our clubs that we saw. A club promoting one of their own, promoting someone that is tirelessly working not just for this club, but the community as a whole and the game as a whole. And that's Rockingham Sharks and Harry Rowe. Playing 3rd grade last week, running sports trainer for their Val Murphy team, and then running ground manager while the 1st grade game was on. Now, that's a heck of a day. And just, looking at sort of Harry, obviously a lot of people know him, always sports trainer, all the grades, all the teams at Rocco. Good to see him back out there running on the field as a player as well. But also, sports trainer for Perth Kiwis over the last couple of years with the 18s and the men's teams, as well as, I believe, doing some stuff with the under-16 girls state team in the past. And I think it's just highlight what we do with local legends. It's one to highlight these players and these people that, they're taking on all the roles. They're doing all the stuff for their club. They're doing all the stuff. Harry's also involved with Rise, with the Dolphins, and it's people putting back in the game. And I think anyone listening, I'd encourage you, if you've got these people, promote them, share what they're doing, share the work these people do. And, hit us up. Tell us who you've got at your club that's doing this stuff. Tell us at your club who's busting their backside to make their club the best it can be.
Absolutely right there, Morgz. Now, Beer Triks, you would have had a few things to do with H over the years.
Oh, he's an absolute legend, mate. You talk about people that love the game and stay involved. This is it's Harry personified, and given everything, every NRL WA event you go to, Harry's there. Harry's there with a different coloured shirt on. Doesn't matter what it is, what's needed to be done. Whether it's the red shirt, ground manager, yellow shirt, trainers,
blue shirt,
trainer,
he's got the NRL WA shirt on.
He'll do it all. NRL WA shirt. If setting up fields, whatever, he's the man. So Rockingham Sharks, if you're making Harry Rowe pay fees to play third grade, refund him.
Yeah,
refund him.
Absolutely. It's blokes like that.
He's worth the money.
It's blokes like that keep clubs going. So absolutely fantastic work, Harry Rowe. Gents, unfortunately, that's it for today. So until next time, remember to train hard, be kind, and love rugby league.